Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the September 12th, 2022 council meeting to order. Jenny, will you please call roll?
Ms. Aludo?
Here.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Here.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Here.
Mayor Fox?
Here.
Mr. Keeler?
Here.
Ms. Cram?
Here.
Councilwoman Aludo, would you like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this evening we have a special presentation by Matt Ehrman about an event that's quite impressive. So would you like to share that with us, Matt?
Yes, good evening, members of council. This is a great opportunity for us to celebrate some heroism from our staff over the summer. On Thursday, July 14th, shortly after noon, Mr. Steve Patton, father of one of our summer campers, was jogging to the North Pool to see his son dive off the platform at the North Pool. Shortly after he arrived, he collapsed near the front desk. Staff recognized the emergency and quickly responded by activating the emergency action plan. Staff immediately assessed the situation and provided care before Washington Township EMS arrived on the scene. Upon their arrival, Washington Township EMS and staff continued that care. Less than 30 minutes later, Washington Township transported Mr. Patton to the hospital. Mr. Patton's condition ultimately improved and thankfully is able to be with us here this evening to share in the recognition of our staff. So Steve and family, thank you for being here. This scenario in which most people would not know what to do, our recreation services team, primarily in aquatics, has met with these types of situations that if not prepared, likely would not end up in the results of saving lives. Our leadership team takes staff preparedness very seriously to make sure we are able to successfully prevent and respond to emergency situations. I would like to recognize our full-time staff, Kim Wigram, Stacy Ty, and Amy McCarter, for their design and execution of what I would refer to as one of the most robust lifeguard in-service training programs. Under our director, Tracy G. leadership and the city's collaboration with Washington Township EMS, Kim, Stacy, and Amy continue to improve our program to make sure that our team is prepared to respond as they did. When these types of situations occur, you can imagine the stress and the anxiety that go along with the experience. The training can only prepare us how to respond. To actually apply the training in a real-life emergency takes courage, strong character, and certainly heroism. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and congratulate those on our staff who responded to this emergency with great professionalism and courage. So as I call your name, please come up here to the front and face the audience if you would. I don't think Pedro Zerat Sanchez is here. Okay. Elena Latshaw. Anna Spini. Ellie Spini. Jillian Eberhardt. Adam McCardle, sorry. And did Aiden Magyar show? Okay, well, guys, I congratulate you and want to recognize you for your heroism as you performed outstanding when the time was up for the need. So thank you all very much for doing that. And if you could stay put for just 1 minute, Mayor Fox would like to come down and say a few words. Thank you.
I also think it would be nice to have our Dublin staff stand up too, because I think the preparation that they gave is just amazing. So do we have our Dublin staff here today? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, it's really amazing that you were able to respond the way you did, because on the one hand, to be able to respond means that you actually incorporated everything that they taught you during the time that you were learning about life saving. And you think you're never going to use it. And then when the time comes and you have to use it, then you have to say to yourself, can I really remember it all? But you did. You remembered every bit of it, and you saved a life because of it. And it's a lesson for all of us to be prepared with our CPR training and to be sure that we know that we can help someone when they need it. So it's a wonderful thing to hear that you were able to do this. And we're also very, very proud of you. And I know that we've been short-staffed on lifeguards, but know that your being there, that you came to work that day, that you were meant to be there, that you did what you did. You should look back on this and know that you've done a wonderful job. So we're really proud of you. And we want to recognize you. On behalf of Dublin City Council and the City of Dublin, we hereby recognize and appreciate the life-saving measures exhibited by our exceptional staff members on July 14th, 2022, as they administered aid to a person in medical distress at the Dublin Community Pool. We thank you for your response in a time of emergency and for bringing great pride to our community. So we thank you very much. Adam? Once more, we need to congratulate them.
Thank you, Mayor Fox. If you don't mind, Steve Patton is here this evening and would like to say a few words if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you again. He didn't tell the whole story. I mean, on that day, July 14th, I died there, and so we're not overstating it. I stopped breathing, my heart stopped and everything. And, and I'm here because of these five and the other one and the staff. Thank you so much. It just speaks to the training that they received, which I think speaks to Dublin in general, which we love, and just the fire department, the EMT, just the community. So as you know, I have young kids, small family, so I think they're really thankful too that they still have their dad, and so thanks again.
What a wonderful way to start this evening's meeting. So that's great. And you're more than welcome to stay for this meeting. It's one of the most interesting things we do here. But if you'd like to leave in case the weather's calling your name, we certainly would understand. And once again, thank you. You've really lifted our lives tonight. So we're so very proud of you. So you're welcome to stay, but we understand if you don't want to stay the whole meeting. Mm-hmm. So this portion of the meeting is the citizens' comments, and it's an opportunity for citizens to comment on any topic that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone here present who wishes to make a comment or have any comments been received online this evening? Not hearing any. Next is our consent agenda. Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Thank you. Jenny, would you please call roll?
Mr. Keeler,
Yes.
Ms. Cram,
Yes.
Ms. Soludo,
Yes.
Mayor Fox,
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms.
Yes.
All right. During second readings on our public hearing, Ordinance 30-22.
Adopting the 2023 through 2027 5-year capital improvements program.
We will be having an update this evening from our Finance Director, Matt Stifler. Welcome, Matt.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Tonight is the second hearing on the 2023 through 2027 CIP. Have a short update on a couple of projects, and then we would ask for you to postpone the vote so that we can have a second work session and additional hearing on the legislation at next Monday's council meeting. So speaking of schedules, this schedule identifies that we have a workshop at 5 p.m. before the next council meeting. The current follow-ups for that discussion following this presentation are a break-even and sensitivity analysis on debt financing timing throughout the years of the CIP, and then the utilization of placeholders for future infrastructure projects. So I'll have presentations on those topics and anything else that we might bring up as a result of this conversation tonight. Regarding tonight's presentation, there's one new project that I wanted to make you aware of. It came up, and since the timing works to include it in the CIP, we went ahead and included it, and I just wanted to brief you on it to get your approval to include it. It is a $475,000 appropriation for NREC for call handling equipment. It will be funded through the Wireless 911 Fund, Fund 244. This project's inclusion will have no impact on the budget regarding the CIP because this funding is restricted for this purpose and was not previously utilized. So it's not available to use for another project, and it previously, prior to having this project brought forward, was not being utilized for any other project. So it is essentially a project that we're able to fund without making any additional decisions regarding the CIP. The second project that we wanted to bring forward for discussion was there was discussion about the Waterways maintenance program, and we had programmed 5-year funding in the CIP somewhere between the accelerated and standard program, and council had requested that we program it at the accelerated rate. So you can see here that the accelerated rate is about an $80,000 difference in 2023, a $390,000 difference in 2024, and then a reduction in costs in 25 through 27. As a result of moving $390,000 forward from the later years of the CIP to the second year of the CIP, we unfortunately have a negative year in that second year of $333,000. In order to balance the CIP, we have some options available to you to bring the CIP back into balance. In addition to these CIP expenditures, I also wanted to remind you that the Accelerated Waterways Maintenance Program will require operating budget appropriations. Those appropriations over the next 3 years would be $90,000 in the 2023 operating budget, $130,000 in 24, and $240,000 in 25. So it will be these CIP appropriations, and then as part of the operating budget process, we'll bring forward those appropriations in the appropriate year. With regard to solving this budget imbalance that's created in that second year, there are a couple of options that we've identified for you, or another choose your own adventure option, if you will, that you can identify projects that are not listed here. So the sawmill interchange, we have $650,000 programmed in 2023. We could move that $650,000 to 2025. Additionally, if you were interested in pursuing that program in 2024, when we made modifications to the Riverside Crossing Park kind of late in the process to bring it forward a year, we weren't able to cash fund that design, so we ended up debt funding the design in order to not make significant changes to the CIP, with the understanding that it was council's preference we not utilize debt funding for that when it eventually came forward. We could do something similar here if you're interested, where we budgeted in 25, but understand that if you're interested in moving it to 24 as funds become available when we talk about the 24 CIP, we could consider this project a priority to move forward should that happen. We don't have to, it's just an option that is available to you. We could also amend some of the appropriations related to park signs. The park signs are the same amount, but we essentially move spending from the first year to the third year of the CIP related to park signs. We could make a similar declaration on our prioritization of those signs or not in future CIPs if we move that funding. And then really, these are just a couple of examples that we've heard council members express interest in. There is essentially any modification to the CIP that would move $350,000 from the second year back to any other subsequent year would fix this budgetary imbalance. So really, any project that would be greater than that amount would be eligible to be a solution to this budgetary problem. And with that, I'm available to take direction.
Questions for Matt?
I just have a comment. I want to say thank you for doing this. I think the waterway maintenance program is really important and really affects our residents way more than the plantings on Selma Road and the park signs. I know those were two of the ones I suggested, and I appreciate you giving the numbers for those. Thanks.
Kathy?
Thank you. Matt, could you go back one slide? So the very last bullet here, in addition to the capital cost, there's the maintenance. And was that the accelerated numbers on the maintenance? So 90, 130, 240, that doesn't look accelerated. So is this, I know they were sort of done together, so I'm sort of asking the question, is this the accelerated plan on the operating budget side?
My understanding is it is the accelerated
Okay.
plan, yes.
The original request for the operating budget would have been $30,000. We moved up $60,000 into 2023 to accelerate the program, and we've lined it up such that when we go into an area for both erosion and blockage removal, those will be together, so we don't need to disturb areas more than necessary. So it is accelerated, and it represents what we feel is the most effective and efficient way to carry out the projects.
Wonderful. So I appreciate that very much. As Amy said, I appreciate that work. And it seems that the sign, if I understand it, delaying the signs in and of itself would satisfy this. And this would, for me, this would trump a sign update into a future year. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Matt, I'd just like to, thanks for doing this and looking at this, and thanks to staff for putting the information together. I think with the rain events that seem to be becoming more frequent, we're going to have more work to do in these erosion control spaces. And I think it's probably going to be appropriate that we have nearly an accelerated fund policy moving forward, because just in my trip around the city, I've seen a lot of erosion here in the last couple weeks that is relatively remarkable. So thanks for doing that. I think it's important that we bring that forward, and that we also look long-term of this is probably going to be a commitment that is going to last longer than the purview of this CIP. And I would agree that the signs for parks is probably the right place to delay.
I would echo everything my colleagues have said. Really appreciate the work on this. It's very understandable, and it's great. And I would also agree that the park signs would be where I'd like to see the delay.
Well, we appreciate that, and thank you for giving us those options. Like you said, it's there's always somewhere you can move it around, right? Well, we appreciate that. So going to make a motion to postpone the vote on, do we have public comments on this? Do we have anyone who wants to speak on this? I didn't think we have anybody signed up, but all right, I wanted to make sure. All right. A motion to postpone the vote on this ordinance until the September 26, 2022 council meeting. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Jenny, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Ordinance 31-22.
Establishing the creation of the One Ohio Opioid Relief Special Revenue Fund.
Our staff report once again is Matt Stifler.
Thank you. There are no changes to this ordinance from the first reading, and staff recommends your approval at tonight's meeting.
Any public comment on this particular ordinance? Council, any questions or discussions? None? All right. All right, we have to make a vote on the ordinance. So Jenny, would you please call roll?
Ms. Saludo,
Yes.
Ms. Cram,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms,
Yes.
Mayor Fox,
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Mr. Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 32-22.
Amending ordinance number 1496 passed April 1st, 1996, as subsequently amended to supplement the public improvements to be made to benefit the property identified in that ordinance.
Once again, Matt?
Once again, no changes from the first hearing, and staff recommends your approval.
Any public comment on this particular ordinance? Seeing none, do we have any questions or discussion? All right, Jenny, please call roll.
Ms. Cram,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms,
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Mr. Keeler,
Yes.
Mayor Fox.
Yes.
Ms. Saludo.
Yes.
Ordinance 33-22.
To remove special assessments previously levied for certain public improvements in the city of Dublin, Ohio, in cooperation with the Columbus Regional Energy Special Improvement District Bridge Park D Block Project.
Our staff report this evening is from Kirby Dirt. Welcome, Kirby.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. There have not been any updates since your last reading. Staff is still recommending approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any comment from the public on this particular ordinance? Seeing none. Council, do you have any questions for Kirby? All right. Jenny, would you please call roll?
Ms. Saludo,
Yes.
Mayor Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Cram,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms.
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Yes.
Mr. Keeler.
Yes.
This is the introduction and first reading on ordinance 34-22.
Amending the annual appropriations for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2022.
I'll introduce it.
Our staff report, once again, is Matt Stifler.
Good evening, members of council. This is the third quarter supplemental appropriations ordinance. A memo was included with the ordinance identifying the expenditure amounts and purpose, and I'm ready to answer any questions or provide any additional information. Staff recommend approval of this ordinance at your next meeting. Thank you.
Any public comment on this particular ordinance? Hearing none. Council, do we have any questions for Matt? All right, hearing
And
none.
I just have one question relative to the property from the county along the river. Can you tell me a little bit about the adjacent uses? I drove through there and it wasn't terribly clear. And what our plans would be for that?
I'm going to have to follow up with you on that. I'm not familiar with the adjacent uses, more the financing issue, so I will get that information and respond in a memo.
Sure, we've got second readings.
I had a similar question because the adjacent, I do know the adjacent, there's a park across the street, that's like the Wedgwood Hills. It's considered parkland in our community plan. And my question to staff was, is the intention to put this in the parkland? I mean, there's the little Columbus parcel where the Leather Lips Monument stands, but otherwise everything around it is currently part of our park system plan.
And my question was relative if we could use our park acquisition funds to fund that and maybe not encumber those other dollars, but we have second reading, so we have plenty of time. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Let's see. No. We were at 32-22. Is that where we're at? 35-20. I'm sorry.
Rezoning
No,
plus
we
or
are at-
minus 6.67 acres from MUR 4 Mixed Use Regional 4 Llewellyn Farms District to PUD Planned Unit District Vista Community Church to utilize a developed site for religious or public assembly. This site is located on the east side of France Road, north of Park Center Avenue.
I'll introduce it.
All right. Our staff report is Tammy Noble.
Good evening. The ordinance before City Council this evening is for a rezoning and a preliminary development plan, specifically for the Vista Church located at 5626 France Road. The site is approximately a 6.6 acre tract of land located on the east side of France Road, just north of Park Center Avenue. The site is currently zoned MUR4 and was recently rezoned in December of the previous year. The site is fully developed, as you can see. The site has approximately a 43,000 square foot building to the forefront of the parcel, with approximately 445 parking spaces to the northeast locations of the building. The proposal is to rezone the parcel to a planned unit development to propose a singular use, specifically a religious use. There are no modifications proposed for the site, and the applicant is proposing to include, as I said, a singular use with accessory uses associated with a religious organization. A bit of an overview for the site. Again, it's currently zoned MUR4. It was previously zoned suburban office, which did include religious uses. The city did initiate a rezoning to MUR4 to implement the policies and recommendations of the Dublin Corporate Area Plan. In those efforts, we focused our attempts on approximately half a dozen uses that were narrowly focused for office uses. Religious uses were not purposely omitted. We simply focused our attentions on office uses. The applicant did approach the planning staff to propose the application that's before council tonight, and we have been working with the applicant for the last several months to implement the current proposal. The application before City Council, again, is for religious uses. The applicant has described their uses as religious services that are exclusively once a week. Their congregation size is approximately 350 people at max capacity. With their current development text, they are implementing the development standards of MUR4, which is important because we worked very diligently with residents of Llewellyn Farms to incorporate these development standards. So this development text will benefit those efforts that the residents have incorporated. The other addition to this proposal is the applicant's willing to modify their site. They have an excessive amount of parking when we reviewed their application, and they have offered to dedicate approximately a quarter of an acre of their site to benefit the Llewellyn Farms Park. This will incorporate some of their existing parking and will be done through an amended final development plan that will be reviewed by Planning and Zoning Commission. These are pictures of the site, again, existing conditions. The applicant is not proposing any changes. They will modify the site with a sign appropriately to identify their use, and we'll go through the Planning and Zoning Commission for that as well. Planning has reviewed the application, and the site or the application meets all of the review criteria that we've identified for rezoning and a preliminary development plan. And Planning's requesting approval of the rezoning application and would ask City Council to make such an effort in the second reading on the next September agenda. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I see the applicants with us as well.
Do we have any public comment on this particular ordinance? All right, council, questions, discussion? Do you have it?
Tammy, just for my clarification, so you said this would be rezoned PUD single use. So it wouldn't retain the public office use as well as the religious use into the future, or did I misunderstand that?
So I'll clarify. So the actual use will be planned unit development, and it'll incorporate two uses. All of the uses in MUR4, which it currently obtains, and religious use. So it'll add a singular use to the site.
So add one, I just misunderstood you. Thank you. And then as far as the dedication of the parkland, is this something that the Llewellyn Farms group wants to have done during the course of this discussion?
We've actually contacted our Parks Department because we actually maintain it and ensure that we're ready and willing to take that on. Does that answer the question?
So the answer is yes. So that's that becomes a city responsibility? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, yes,
Then the city would pay to
maintain.
and put it into park format, remove all the asphalt, do that?
I would imagine we're going to get into those types of details when it goes for the amended final development plan. I just know that this is a gesture to dedicate the land.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I had one. I know that, that there aren't any members of the neighboring community here, and I've heard that they are happy with this as a rezoning use, and I wanted to verify that this was simply an oversight when it came to thinking about putting religious use in the MUR4. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. All right, thank you. Our second reading and public hearing is scheduled for September 26, 2022 on this. Thank you. Ordinance 36-22.
Authorizing the provision of certain incentives to Ease Logistics Services LLC to induce it to purchase an office building for the relocation of the company's existing office and the expansion of that office and its associated operations and workforce within the city, and authorizing the execution of an economic development agreement.
I'll introduce it.
Our staff report is Jenna Gehring.
Good evening, members of council. We've been in discussions with Ease Logistics on the expansion of their company here in Dublin. Ease Logistics is a multi-operational supply chain and transportation solutions company that provides accelerated, innovative services that help deliver the products and goods of select clients by means of a highly effective global network. Since its founding in 2014, Ease has called the City of Dublin home. And as Ease continues to grow, the company is considering the purchase of a 150,000 square foot facility in Dublin to locate their corporate headquarters. The economic development agreement proposed to Ease Logistics is a 13% performance incentive on withholdings over 5 years, valued at $421,000 for the term of the agreement in consideration of the company's continued investment and planned workforce growth in Dublin. The city is also proposing to install the Dublin lateral connection to the purchase facility. The value of this connection is $32,416. Finally, the city is proposing a $200,000 location grant to offset moving and fit-up costs to encourage the local real estate investment and preparation of the building to become a corporate headquarters after being vacant for 3 years. You may recall that we similarly offered grants to Ohio Health, Quantum Health, and Univar Solutions. The project would be the 4th facility in Dublin and expects to retain 194 existing employee positions within the city. In addition, the company expects to create 350 new employee positions for a total of 544 employees and an approximate payroll of $41.5 million within the city by the end of 2027. Jobs Ohio, the state of Ohio's economic development agency, is also proposing economic development incentives to Ease to help retain and expand its workforce and investment in Ohio. The competitive project also considered Colorado and Florida during the site selection process. Staff recommends council approves this ordinance on September 26th, and I'm happy to answer any questions council may have at this time.
Thank you, Jenna. Is there any public comment on this? All right, hearing none. Council, we have some questions for Jenna. All right. It's very good. Thank you very much. And I think it's worth noting that within the next few years, up to 2027, the project is anticipated to bring approximately $3,382,000 in net withholdings. It's very nice. Thank you very much. Our second reading and public hearing on this is scheduled for September 26, 2022. Ordinance 37-22.
Adopting and enacting a supplement S52 to the Code of Ordinances for the City of Dublin, Ohio.
I'll introduce it.
Our staff report is Jennifer Radler.
Good evening, members of council. The supplement before you this evening was prepared by the city's codifier, American Legal Publishing. It includes local legislation approved through June 30th of this year and state legislation approved through April 6th of this year. Staff recommends approval of Ordinance 37-22 at the second reading public hearing on September 26th, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Public comment? No? Council, questions or discussions for Jennifer?
Jennifer, I just have a question relative to the substantive change in the serving of alcohol. So it looks like in 3A, has the age changed from 19 to 18?
Right, for under 18. So if you look, if you look down to the crossed out version, and again, these, most of the liquor laws are governed by liquor control, and so we usually adhere to that. But yes, it looks like just changing that to adult age.
And I'm assuming that all of our establishments here will be made aware of these changes.
Yes, I mean, anytime that they're serving, liquor control is very good about communicating any changes in the law to license holders.
Great, thanks.
And I just want to make one note that the dates didn't get changed on that very first page. If you look at both you gave us a red line version and then a clean copy, and on both, even the clean copy, I don't think they got made. So you've got the page that says City of Dublin Code of Ordinance, and then you have the next page that has the ordinance number 0922 at the top, and then it says an ordinance adopting and enacting supplement 51, which should be 52, but then the dates still have November, the old dates are still in there.
We'll communicate that.
It's
to the
just that one
codifier.
page.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussions? All right. The second reading and public hearing is scheduled for September 26, 2022. So introduction resolutions, resolutions 42-22.
A resolution declaring certain city-owned property as surplus and authorizing the city manager to dispose of said property in accordance with section 37.07 of the Dublin Codified Ordinances.
I'll introduce it.
Our staff report this evening is Brian Ashford. Brian?
Sorry. This is our annual request to dispose of property, vehicles, and equipment that has outlived its useful life. Basically, as we get new vehicles and equipment through this year's CIP or the anticipated CIP for next year, we try to keep the replacements, the old vehicles and equipment, keep them off our property and get them disposed of as quickly as possible. And this resolution will allow us to do that, mostly on our GovDeals auction site, which we've been very successful at disposing of equipment on in the past. So we anticipate continuing that in the future, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any public comment on this for the fire sale? All right. Do we have any council questions or discussions? Kathy?
Hey, Brent, I just had a general question. Are we struggling at all to get new equipment in with lead times or any of that? Just
Yes.
interested.
I'm sorry. Yes, we are. I mean, the lead times have been extended on a lot of equipment and a lot of vehicles. So even though we're seeking the authorization, there's no guarantee we're actually going to get rid of the equipment next year. It could be more like 15 to 16 months before some of this equipment arrives. But so we are experiencing those kind of delays, yes.
Brian, I'm kind of curious, when you have sales like these through that government entity, do you usually sell them pretty quickly? You anticipate that they'll sell pretty quickly?
Yeah, there is a lot of interest. I've actually had folks who buy our equipment say, hey, we like to see City of Dublin on the list, just because we do make an effort to maintain the equipment. True, by the time we get rid of it, I mean, it's 10, 12 years old. So, I mean, we pretty much used it up, but they still like to purchase the equipment because they know it's been fairly well maintained. And they're mostly getting it for parts and things of that nature, so.
Thank you. So we need to make a vote on this resolution. Jenny, please go roll.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. Other business tonight is our Public Services Committee concerning the Stormwater Basin Maintenance Grant Pilot Program, and our staff report is from Paul Hammersmith or Aaron Ashford. Looks like you've swapped suits there.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Tonight, I'd like to present the Stormwater Basin Maintenance Grant Pilot Program 2022 grant application. The Stormwater Basin Maintenance Grant Pilot Program was approved for a 2-year pilot period with the 2022 through 26 capital improvements program. So this is the first year for us implementing this program. This program provides for a total of $30,000 in both 22 and 23 for eligible expenses to improve stormwater basins. Each application is eligible anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 for a matching grant to homeowners associations that are responsible for the maintenance of publicly owned stormwater basins. The purpose of our program is to encourage proper maintenance of stormwater basins that are not publicly maintained. The application period was open in the spring of 2022 and unfortunately had to be extended when we received no applications. One application was received, and that was from the Tartan Ridge HOA. As part of the application process, there is detailed financial data that is submitted with any application. So we will see the quote for the work from their contractor. We'll see the homeowners association's book, so that we'll see that they have the financial means to do the matching funds. So those things are all presented to us as part of the application. The Tartan Ridge HOA project will remove deposited sediment, reshape rock channel protection, and remove invasive plant material. Their total project cost estimate is $31,030 from MH Aquatics, and their grant request is for the maximum of $10,000. The following slide shows some graphic images that show some representative improvements that they'll make to their pond areas. So you can see most of these are near the inlets and outlets to ponds, which is a common area that we see sediment being deposited, and then you also see some of the rock channel protection that they'll be reshaping. And then I believe, yes, the following slide shows some of the cattails and invasive species that will all be cleaned up with this project. The recommendations as part of the Public Services Committee, they made a positive recommendation for approval of this application to City Council on August 10th, 2022. Staff recommends the support and approval of this application by City Council, and staff is available to answer any questions that you may have about this item or program.
Thank you, Aaron. Do we have any public comment on this? None? Council, questions?
Aaron, I've got a question. So, you know, a lot of these problems seem to be repetitive in nature. And have we come up with a proposed solution that would, so that we're not reinventing the wheel and everyone's not doing it a different way? Have we engineered a solution to these long-term so that when these funds are granted, that they're given direction in terms of, rather than just remove the cattails and replace some rocks, to genuinely fix it for the long term? And have we engineered the solution for them?
And that's a great question. So as part of the application process, they are required to come in and meet with engineering, and that's not punishment. That is so that we can give them technical guidance and talk with them about some of their ideas about the pond. So while we don't have a solution for every problem, you're correct. There are many things about stormwater basins that are repetitive. They're common to many of those different ponds. So that is really the point of our consultation that we have with them, is to talk with them about, and this one was actually a great example because they weren't thinking about, they were thinking more about the invasive species. We gave them the idea about some of the sediment that they have at their inlet and outlet to try to find maybe a little bit more substantial project, because that's what they were looking for. So that really came out of that collaborative process was our ability to be able to tell them, you know, what you're doing is great. If you look over here, there's some more opportunities. As we keep going into these things, we'll find more and more of those common elements. And I think the nice thing that we've already started talking about is, as we have some of the successes from these other programs, we'll be able to point to those as we advertise for next year. A great example, we had, you know, we frequently get called out about ponds, especially ones that are privately maintained. We were out walking almost all of Tartan West ponds, which is pretty extensive. And part of that was just talking with them about some ideas of maintenance and things they could do. While we're out there, we kind of pitched that about this program. So they said we will definitely be we will have at least one coming in next year, but that's the purpose of us having that meeting up front. So yeah, that's exactly what our purpose is, and that's a great question. Thank you.
So what do they intend to do to these drain inlets? What is the solution that we're contemplating funding?
So at the inlet and the outlet, what they're doing is they're going to remove some of the deposited sediment. So that's very common. Those are one of the first areas that we see in those retention basins that start to build up with that sediment. As that builds up and we get that more shallow zone, what that invites is the cattails, right? So it just kind of keeps building upon itself. So that is one of the first areas if we want to have, because that needs to happen with these ponds over time, especially as they age. Those are one of the first places that we want to remove that deposited sediment. So if we can get those taken care of at those first points of where it's coming into the system, it helps them long term in many different ways. I think the other thing that it does is we've all seen and we've all wrestled with the murky chocolate milk looking ponds, as they get, further in age with stormwater. And that's the other thing that clearing out those areas help, because when we get that shallow layer of silt and sediment, when those first waters come flushing in, you can imagine what it just spreads it through the pond. So that's kind of the idea of focusing on those areas with this project.
Did we possibly encourage them? Oftentimes now you'll see where there will be a concrete apron that will come out of the inlet, and there'll be almost equivalent to like a sluice box sort of thing that will gather the sediment that makes it something that you can clean out over the course of time. So are we demanding or recommending or requesting that there is some sort of clean out system available when these renovations are done? So, because depending on where it is and the location of the next construction project, they could sediment fill in the next 3 to 5 years. Apart from that, they're probably going to sediment in the next 15 to 20.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this improvement, no, that isn't something we have considered, but it is something as we look to update our stormwater design manual, those are some of the things that we're also looking at. And it doesn't mean with like the next rounds, we can also kind of start considering and implementing some of those things. But, those are the things that we're trying to look at all of those different elements and make these things much easier to maintain.
Well, I certainly am very supportive of this application. I think we need to get started to start learning some things, but I would really be supportive of us engineering typical design solutions for the typical problems that we see. Because we're going to see probably 3 of them over and over, and then we're going to have a few outliers. And if we can have design solutions at the ready for the 3, so we're not asking our residents to become engineers as well, then it might really help them come in and help them get pricing and things like that too, because they could have a design that they turn, rather than try to talk with their contractor and come up with something, we could have a design that they could implement, and it probably would expedite the process on their end a lot quicker.
That's definitely something we can do.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate all your work on that.
Yeah.
Aaron, first, thanks for coming in a couple weeks ago and mustering the troops and trying to stem the flow of the reign of epic proportions. As Councilmember Amorose Grooms mentioned, the water that we've had is somewhat unprecedented. The timing of this program is very fitting in the discussion. It would seem to me that the residents in neighborhoods that have seen some issues, it would seem pretty obvious that you would be going out and recommending that they use this program to maintain their basin if that basin is in their purview and not ours. But I think it's important for all the HOAs to know that this exists. We've got another year in the pilot. There are funds that haven't been used for this year. So again, any folks that have come forward with issues or any issues you've recognized, it's important we try to use those funds and leverage the funds for next year, and to understand that stormwater system is a system. It's a network. It all works together. And if there's a failure in one neighborhood, it can affect the folks downstream. So again, thank you for your service.
Actually, you just reminded me, hopefully we can have just a brief blurb of this at our HOA meeting in October so people are aware of it and they can, put it in their budget for next year. So hopefully we can get more applications.
Aaron, I wanted to ask you, how many ponds do you think are cared for in the city by HOAs? How many do you think this might be applicable to?
Yeah, we have that number. I don't want to quote it because I want to say 46, but I don't think that's right.
Something in the
Yeah,
30s,
we have
40s.
that number. We can report back, but I think it's in that neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
And the comment about helping people understand what it is that their ponds might need, possibly, as we go forward. I know I have a pond on my property, and it was a learning curve to try to figure out how to keep it healthy. So it is important, I think, to try to find ways to communicate with those HOAs what are healthy ponds. I know Franklin County has a service, and they'll come out and they'll actually help you understand what you can do to make your pond healthier. And there's bacteria that you can put in these ponds to keep the sediment low, and that sort of thing is a maintenance issue too. But if we could help them understand and learn what the resources are and what it is we intend that the money is helping them to do, maybe they could plan ahead for it, and that they would be able to afford to do the matching grant.
And one thing we've learned with our stormwater designs, when they're first designed with the subdivisions, one of the things we've encouraged with the update of our manual is the requirement of an operation and maintenance plan for whatever stormwater facility it is. So the engineer that designs it has to provide, this is how it needs to be maintained. This needs to be done yearly. This needs to be done every 5 years. But what we found, I think what we found to be a little bit more successful is when those ponds are initially maintained, it's maintained by the developer. And at some point with the build out in the neighborhood, it's turned over to the HOA. So what we're really trying to focus on is at the time when that's turned over, to try to meet with the HOA so that they get that document, to kind of give them a little bit of education about here's what it's going to entail. Now, obviously they're going to hire that out, but so that they get that document, so that they have that understanding. But those are some of the things that we're trying to do, because that education is very important.
All right, make a motion to accept the recommendations of the Public Services Committee and approve the application. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, Jenny, would you please call roll?
Mayor Fox,
Yes.
Ms. Saludo,
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa,
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms.
Yes.
Ms. Cram.
Yes.
Mr. Keeler.
Yes.
Thank you. Our staff report by Homer Rogers is on the DEI and our ethics training of 2023.
Good evening, members of council. In your packets, you have a memo reference periodic training requirements for members of city council boards and commissions. First part of that is giving you a reminder that we will be doing annual cybersecurity training starting this fall, and that's going to be required for everybody that has access to our networks or use our devices. Secondly, back in May of 2021, council made a decision or directive to require DEI and state ethics training on a biannual basis. The state training is pretty much packaged already, and we'll get that implemented, but there are some options for council to consider in terms of DEI training. And in the memo, it articulates, some of those two options that we have on here. So you could decide to do one, the other, both, what have you, but we are recommending that it go to the admin committee for them to actually review this package and then come back to council with their recommendations on that. I would like to give you a little bit of background on what training, how we resulted with the 2021 training for all the boards and commissions. One of the offerings was a live session about implicit bias training, and that was done with Mr. Steve Francis. There were only 4 members of boards and commissions that were not able to get scheduled for those sessions. Everybody else did attend those sessions. And then there was an online version through Cornerstone for diversity, equity, and inclusion. There was only 1 board or commission member that was not able to get that done. Other than that, there were 2 members of boards and commissions that didn't do any of the training whatsoever, just for your awareness. Other than that, since then, we've had some turnover and some new board members, and there's 5 of them out there that have not been scheduled or been offered any of the training, so they would be required to do it in 2023. Subject to your questions, again, we recommend that this go to the admin committee for further review and recommendations on that or any other trainings that council may want to direct or provide to members of council boards and commissions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this? Council, questions for Homer? Any?
I have a couple comments. So in your presentation, you said that you were going to choose either 1 or 2. You gave us 2 groups of stuff.
You could actually choose one The other or both. Yeah,
Okay,
if you want to do that.
if you were leaning towards both, I would shorten the first one. I suggest to try to keep it around an hour. I wouldn't go much longer than an hour, just for scheduling purposes. And then just my 2 cents as a participant, because I was on a board and commission and I took both those sessions that you guys had last year. And the DE&I one, I mean, it was average. It wasn't that great. You flipped through it pretty fast, and I wouldn't say I learned much, but the implicit bias training was excellent. And I've done a lot of different trainings, and I thought that one was really good.
Yeah.
And I would recommend doing that one again, honestly. I think that one was useful.
And, just to address the length of the first one that's offered here for an hour and 10 minutes, if you notice, there's, several different modules in that. Those modules, you can eliminate 1 or 2 of them and get down within that hour if that's what you want to do.
That's fine.
But again, that's what I'd recommend.
Just being from someone who took the ones from last year, I just wanted to give my feedback on them.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to refer the DEI and the ethics training for 2023 to the administrative committee. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Jenny?
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is just the proposed 2023 council meeting schedule. This is just for council's review only. There is no action needed on this, so I would suggest that we take a look and see what your schedule looks like, and then we'll discuss and vote on that meeting schedule at the next meeting on September 26th.
I would just like to bring up one change I'd like to propose. I checked in with Jenny today. The National Association of Regional Councils meeting would interfere with the January 23rd meeting, and I reached out to Jenny to see if there would be a conflict of moving that to the January 30th. And she indicated that that was a scheduling change that we could make if that's what we decided to do. So I'd like to request that change. I know things come up for us during the course of the year, and we all miss a meeting from time to time, but I don't like to schedule missed meetings ahead of time.
Take a look at that. All right, any other thoughts and conflicts that you want to bring up? All right, seeing none. All right, we're up to staff comments. Dana?
Good evening. Just a few items I wanted to lift up. First, I wanted to congratulate the city and our fleet team for the NAFA Fleet Management Association award that they received for one of the top 3 sustainable fleets in the country. Top honors went to City of Riverside, California as first place. City of Long Beach, California came in second, and the City of Dublin, Ohio came in third, which I thought that was pretty good company to keep. The top 3 green fleets showcase their commitments towards the use of alternative and hybrid vehicle composition, fuel usage and savings, purchasing policies, long-range planning, and community outreach, among other areas. And I think this is a great example of our keeping and our being one of the most sustainable cities in the country. So just congratulations to them and all the hard work and to the city for making that happen. The city will begin collecting styrofoam for recycling. It'll be a drop-off program similar to the food composting program at the service center. And I wish Denise King was still here, because she used to give me a hard time on not why we didn't have styrofoam recycling at curbside years ago. And it just dawned on me when I was reading that. So I'm gonna call her and make sure she sees that we're doing this program. But I'm not picking on her, other than to say it's taken decades to get to that point. And Councilmember Ludo probably knows that, having worked with Swaco. But to be able to have a drop off like this, I hope people take advantage of it. That'll be at our service center near the food waste composting. Again, it's, we're trying to see how successful that could potentially be, somewhat in a beta test fashion. Staff's going to be launching a survey later this week, so you're aware. It's in support of a community inclusion advisory committee. They want to do a survey of the community relative to some of the priorities that you set forward to them, to help them prioritize some ideas in that. I think it's going to provide them great feedback. Kirby has that group having a retreat. I think it's this next week, isn't it, Kirby? 27th, thank you. With the CIAC, they're really gotten their legs, and I think really taken on the effort of the DEI framework and getting a lot of momentum. So it's great to see them really taking off. And I think this is going to help them to spring forward with that. Last, the CPI staff brought home 2 Savvy Awards from the 3CMA conference, which was in Portland last week. And out of over 600 entries, Dublin earned 2 awards of excellence. One was for its recognition of Ramadan on the Instagram Reels, and the other one was for the design of the Dublin's bike path and park map. So congratulations to them and all the staff who helped with that. So other than any questions you might have for me, I just thought I'd give you some good news. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, that's great news. Thank you. Our council reports, Administrative Committee, Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to give a brief update. We held our joint meeting with our boards and commissions on August the 31st. We had really strong attendance and we had an opportunity to have dinner with them along with staff, and it was just really nice to get back together as a group. We covered a variety of topics ranging from an update on the strategic vision and framework, upcoming community plan. We discussed a series of policy issues regarding things such as sense of place, building materials, construction practices, sustainability, and we ended the evening with a discussion of training opportunities. So we had a very full couple hours with the group. Staff has prepared a memo, which will be in your packet tomorrow, which gives more details on this. Staff has already followed up about action items because we left the meeting with several action items that staff has done some updates. So you'll see that and we'll communicate that to the boards and commissions. They've also taken the opportunity, this is I think our third joint meeting with the boards and commissions, sort of what were all the items that have come up before and what are the status of those. So they've done a very nice job of keeping track of all that, and we'll share that with the boards and commissions. And that just allows us again this evening to take an opportunity to thank them for all of their work and to thank staff for all of their support of the boards and commissions. One of the things that did come up at the meeting more than once, just how great the support is from staff for all of their work. So we'll thank for that and look for that update in your memo. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I know Councilman Reiner is away, and I do believe that the Finance and Public Services have upcoming meetings. Does anyone have anything else to report? All right, Council Roundtable. Would you like to start, Amy?
I think the only thing I have is I know the North Riverview Advisory Committee is meeting on Wednesday with one of the applicants who had submitted a proposal. And so hopefully we'll see how that goes and have a memo or more information to follow. Otherwise, I think that's all I got.
Christina?
Thanks. So Dana, great job on the styrofoam recycling. I'm glad to see that that's happening. Thank you. Next is textile recycling. So I got don't worry, I can keep them coming. So thank you. And then I had an opportunity to attend the Columbus Metropolitan Club, one of their lunches that they do on affordable housing. And it was interesting. There was a fair bit of sort of some finger pointing going on towards the suburbs. But I think what's interesting is to remember that affordable housing isn't just you plop a piece of affordable housing on a piece of property and all of a sudden your problem is solved. It takes an entire community of infrastructure and support to be able to really integrate affordable housing into a community. And it is a regional problem. And I will tell you that there were not a lot of regional partners that were at this particular luncheon, which I was a little disappointed about. I thought maybe a couple of the other suburbs and some other regional folks might be there, but they were not. Anyway, I think it's a conversation that we need to continue having and working towards, because it's not just about housing, it's about transportation, it's about community, it's about workforce development. It's about all of those things together to be able to have housing stock that is diverse and some of which could be affordable. But it's a regional problem, not just a Columbus problem, not just a Dublin problem, It's a regional problem. So it was a really interesting conversation. And I do think that they had it recorded. So if you're interested, you can go to the Metropolitan Club site and listen to it. Thanks. That's all I have.
Yeah, I would, on August the 31st, Andy and I had an opportunity to have lunch with Scott Dring with Visit Dublin and some representatives from the Hunden Group that is, they're doing a feasibility study and a needs study relative to athletic facilities within the city of Dublin. And their questions primarily circled around future CIP encumbrances, what were the perceived needs of the community, and what paths we saw for them going forward. And so we had a relatively productive lunch with them, and the result of that was for them to be reaching out to all of you to have a similar conversation. And I believe that you saw an email from Scott about an invitation to book some time with the same individuals that we had the opportunity to meet with. So I'm sure that most of all of our answers will be similar to them, but you know, I'm grateful that everyone will have the opportunity to have that conversation, and certainly the conversation at large in the community about the future of our park system. So these two parallel kind of topics that are moving forward and being discussed in the community. So look forward to your time with them as well, and hopefully you have a productive conversation. There were not any takeaways from that time. They were more inquisitive to see. I think most of their interest was around funding and who the possible folks were, and that certainly is not a question that we could answer. That's going to be a community conversation, and really the lion's share of the burden is going to fall on them to find those entities. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on that and what took place there. And I, other than wishing our clerk a happy birthday this past weekend, that's all I have.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, I did have an opportunity to speak with them, so I know if people haven't, that they're out scheduling that. One of the topics that did come up that I think is important for us to think about is, you know, if we're going to consider these types of things, traveling to see what the state-of-the-art facilities look like, and they did share a few names of those around the region, knowing full well that they're in that business, so that some of them were work that they have done, but there's some state-of-the-art. So as we talk about travel for council and staff, I think if we're serious about this, this would be an important thing for us to go and see what the state of the art looks like here as we move forward. So I did have that. I had a couple things. I had the opportunity to attend, I guess, my first meeting on the Dublin Bridges Advisory Board. They're doing quarterly meetings now, so I attended that on the 7th of September. As you can imagine, they're incredibly busy with the start of school. I won't share a lot of things, but they did share some statistics that I think are just really amazing in their short, almost 5-year history now. Can't believe it's been 5 years, but they have something like 1,500 subscribers who routinely provide support, and they have served almost 3,700 students and family. Some of those on repeat times, but they've had an incredible reach in 5 years, and they continue to find innovative ways. One of the things, I'll just share a couple things back to school. They have stocked personal care pantries in the school. Things like providing assistance for 8th grade trips to Washington that are important. And also things like continuing their work to provide Halloween costumes for the kids that don't have one and need access to. So those are just a couple of examples. The meeting, we spent some time speaking with Tyler Wolf, who is from the Dublin City Schools, heads up the wellness program. And just sort of to your point earlier, Christina, about sort of the multifaceted nature of this, their connections with the school. So it was a lovely meeting. I'll only close by saying that the leadership, Jill Kranstuber and Sarah Savage, just wanted to extend their thanks to council for the ARPA grant. They're working on thinking about what those possibilities are. Staff is going to reach out to them and work on the match, but they're appreciative and excited of our support. And I'll give you quarterly updates as we move forward. The only other comment that I would make, last Friday, Dana and Megan and I had the opportunity to host the Central Ohio Mayors and City Manager meeting here. Jane was out of town, so I pitched it and had an opportunity to join that meeting. It was the first time since COVID that they've had an opportunity to meet here in person, and it was just a great opportunity, and reminded about how important bringing groups together to solve shared problems. And the group is very active in doing a variety of things, and it was an honor to get to host them. So with that, happy 25th, Jenny.
Yes,
Jane, can I comment on something?
you certainly can.
So I just wanted to comment on something Christina said about the Columbus Metropolitan Club. First of all, those live streams are available, archived. I happened to be there as well. And the finger pointing was, I'm going to share the quote. And the quote was, there are communities in the Central Ohio area that are doing their part and others that are building taller fences. So with that, I think we can and will do our part. When I think of Metro Center, I think that's a blank canvas. That's a starting point. And housing and affordable housing, or housing that's affordable, means different things to different people. So we can play our role and not be that community that builds taller fences.
Thank you, Andy. Once again, happy birthday. It's good to be back on vacation. You can tell I'm still a little bit on vacation mode. But I do want to say that I have heard recently, and before I left, I've been receiving some very nice comments from some organizations, and I also want to compliment our chief too, because many of our cultural organizations have given me phone calls and asked that we do some additional speaking engagements, because they are feeling as if Dublin really, really cares about their voice, their recognition, and especially I want to point out the chief's outreach always at things like that. And it's just been a very complimentary message that I've been hearing from many organizations of the effort and the work that our Community Advisory Board is doing, the Chiefs Board is doing, and I think that it's causing some very nice complementary ripple effects. And I hope that it's nice to be complimented, but it's most important to know that we're being effective and that people are feeling recognized. And I wanted to share those compliments, and I want you to pass that on to the advisory groups, both here in the city and at the police station. So other than that, happy birthday, and this meeting is adjourned.